Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my coming out story as well as my journey as a whole. You know, balancing religion and sexuality as well as so much more. Growing up, I was kind of girly but also a tomboy. I used to love spending a lot of time outside, being in nature, biking, being outdoors. I tried to learn how to drive my dad's car when I was 10 years old for some reason. I don't know why, and I still don't drive, which is really interesting. I got into writing, I got into music, art, fashion. I found it very easy to express myself through writing and creating. Overall, I had a lot of pressure on me to be perfect, to be the role model because I am the eldest daughter in my family, and to just kind of set the tone of everything. Honestly, reputation is really big in Azerbaijani culture. That's where I'm from. I'm from Azerbaijan. It's like West Asia basically, and shame falls right into it. So it's like you have to do stuff to make the family look good. I mean, there's nothing you could do that brings shame or any type of negative association to your family and your family name. I found it very challenging to figure out who I was, and then have all these external pressures, and you have to be this way, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't date boys, you can't go out. I had really strict parents growing up, and I feel like I've softened them obviously, but growing up they were like helicopter parents. Like as soon as school is done, they'd be like, come home as soon as you can. You cannot be outside with your friends. You cannot be doing anything basically outside of the home that is not supervised. And it was just really hard. Growing up, you hear a lot of homophobic commentary, a lot of homophobic weird instances. People always talk about the repercussions of living with very strict controlling parents, and then you add a layer of immigration and foreignness, and it's just off the charts. And even my peers were just very at the time growing up it was different versus now. I feel like culture now has shifted a lot, but I had even friends who were homophobic. I had peers in my class who would bully and shame other kids for either being bisexual or gay. I literally heard in front of me multiple times. I've seen it, I've heard it. So not only was it at home, but it was also in the public sphere. It was also at school. Obviously a lot of bullying happens at school, and I used to get bullied a lot, but I think that sexuality is something you cannot choose. Why are you bullying someone because they're not straight? It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me, but half the time it is projection and self-hate, and sometimes they wish they were you. I spent most of my life pretty much living in fear, hiding who I am, denying myself, repressing myself, kind of playing this role that people expect me to play. Always fall in line, always do what you're told, always be quiet, keep your head down, the usual. Especially in my culture where I'm from, more West Asian, Middle Eastern influence. It's very much like that. So I think I struggle a lot with sexuality when people were getting into relationships. And I used to date men. I used to think I was straight, then I used to think I was bi, and now I realize I am gay because I have never really loved a man. And at the time I used to think that there was something wrong with me. How come this guy is amazing, everything is great, how come I'm not developing feelings? How come I don't want to settle down with a man? How come I don't want to pursue this relationship as soon as it gets serious? So I used to understand that as avoidance, and oh yeah, I'm just emotionally unavailable, blah 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 blah. Thought that there was something missing, and it wasn't until my first time with a woman everything made sense. Everything made sense, and I realized that I am actually not straight. And at the time I thought, oh yeah, I'm just bisexual, it's just I finally realized I both both genders. No, that was the internalized homophobia. That was literally internalized homophobia telling me that you can't be fully gay because you still need to be kind of tethered to a man. At the end of the day, you still have to procreate with a man. And that was because of the conditioning I was conditioned into, quite literally. So a few years ago, I was yeah, there's literally no reason to classify as a bisexual woman when I can only see myself with a woman. when I can only see myself marrying and having children with a woman. So that actually made a lot of sense, put everything into perspective, and that kind of answers the how did I know I was a lesbian question. I can only see myself marrying a woman, being with a woman, having a family with a woman. That is how I know. People will always so ask me about reconciling faith and queerness, and I think there's nothing much to reconcile because God made us the way we are. God makes no mistakes, and there is no harm in what we're doing as long as it's consensual, as long as it's safe. I think there is no sin committed, honestly. I think there's greater sins in this world being committed by other populations of people. I'm not even gonna get into that, but you could probably put two and two together. I think a lot of people rather support their, homophobic, misogynistic uncle who beats on their wives or whatever. This is not to say like this is in every family, but like people will support that type of person instead of like the queer aunt, like it's so crazy to me. It's so crazy to me. The double standard is insane. I also felt very alienated from Islam and Muslim people in general. I remember there was a Muslim student association on campus and I was so hesitant to apply because I feel like the moment I apply they're gonna find out, they're gonna start talking about me. There was that fear at the back of my head, like, oh my god, something bad might happen. So I was very much kind of like isolated from the Muslim community. Had my own friends from completely different culture than mine, completely different background, but they embraced me and I felt so seen and so safe. So I will always be thankful to those friends because they offered me something that I never had before. But I did struggle a lot with Islam and just kind of like fitting into it because people were like, are you even Muslim if you're gay, blah 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 blah, and it's just like, yes, I am. I'm very much Muslim and I'm also lesbian. I believe in God, I believe in Islam. I was literally born Muslim. I have read the entire Quran, and it's always great to just like refresh your memory as well and just read it whenever you're struggling or going through anything. You need affirmation, you need a prayer. I think it's a very great framework. I just think that a lot of generations of scholars have misconstrued the verse of Prophet Lut, the story of Prophet Lut. There's a difference between non-consensual acts and consensual acts, and I think that is where, personally, I think that is where the difference is in scripture. Because how come there is no harm being done? There's no actual sin being committed, in my opinion. And I believe that God made us the way we are. It is God's will to love and accept each other, and diversity is God's creative will as well. Started posting some content on TikTok about being, lesbian, and then eventually came out as a lesbian Muslim. Internet went crazy. It went viral at one point. There were a few videos actually, but at the same time I was dealing with a lot of hate. I think I received maybe like over 6,000, 8,000 hate comments per video of the ones that went crazy. There was a lot of disgusting comments. There was a lot of scary comments, a lot of terrifying, disgusting, like everything you could think of. At this point, I've heard it all, I've read it all, I've seen it all. I've been compared to anything that people can compare you to. I've been stitched by like over 7+ like Islamic creators. Some of them, or actually one of them, had like over 1 million followers. So the moment he posted his little stitch of me, all of his like following came onto my page and started attacking me and just degrading me in the comments. I was very surprised, but at the same time, a lot of people are in a way religiously brainwashed and they don't make their own opinions. They listen to humans. They go on YouTube, they search in these podcasters, etc., and they rather listen to people on the internet. They'd rather listen to problematic people in their lives as well, instead of making their own research, spending time with the Quran by yourself, and actually diving into the essence of Islam. Because in my opinion, it's such a beautiful religion, and people love to break it down, to make it ugly, and to make it like this oppressive, scary religion that like hates women and gives so much power to men. And it's like, we were never like this. Islam used to never be like this. It's when people started putting in their own cultural traditions and values and their own systems, that's when we lost the essence of Islam, in my opinion. And a lot of countries throughout the world have honestly, you know, kind of put in their own cultural values into religion. And I think that cannot be done, because then you ruin the essence of religion. It turns into a tradition, turns into a cultural thing. And I think religion and culture, yes, they do intersect, but they are different. I was dealing with the haram police for a couple of months. At one point I had to stop posting because it was literally on every social media platform. It was just like really disheartening. I'm like, this is why queer Muslims do not come out. This is why queer Muslims are so secluded and isolated and withdrawn from the rest of society. Like, this is why. It makes so much sense. I never used to understand why there was no representation growing up. Honestly, part of me understood, but I never understood like why it wasn't as much as, you know, other communities. And after experiencing that, the stuff that you will read, like, that will literally send some people. And it's so crazy how people who have no idea who you are, no idea what you've been through, no idea about anything about you other than a couple videos on TikTok, a couple of posts here and there, will judge you, make these crazy assumptions, and will write a whole story about you without even knowing anything about you. A lot of those comments are projection, and a lot of those comments are rooted in fear because of internalized homophobia within themselves, because they are scared to be who they are half the time. Not all of them. Some people are like straight up just homophobic in my opinion, but there is also another population of people who are repulsed by it because they're repulsed by it within themselves. It scares them because they have those feelings within, and they're like, oh my god, like this cannot, like absolutely not. So there's two parts to the story, and that's why I think representation is so important. It drove me to even create more content eventually, and it allowed me to like, wow, like I'm actually doing an impact in this in the society that we're in. I'm actually doing something bigger than just, you know, posting silly little TikToks here and there. Like, this is actually creating an impact. And I also saw like, you know, some random videos kind of alluding towards me that popped up on my For You page around the time when my stuff was trending, so I knew it was about me. There were some people who obviously mentioned me, and some of them who didn't, and I have like a whole drive of everything just in case I go missing. Everything is on a drive. I did delete a lot of comments because if the average person sees that, especially a queer Muslim who is younger or still closeted, fearing for their life, living with their parents, etc., that could cause a lot of mental health issues. That could also prevent them from coming out, from being themselves, from embracing themselves, from living authentically. It also got to the point where a lot of queer Muslims were connecting, facilitating conversations, meeting each other in the comments, like so many, and a lot of people were attacking them, saying the craziest, most obscene things to my commenters. And at that point is when I started deleting and blocking a lot of people. I think I spent hours per day just going through it all, screenshotting it, documenting it, and just, you know, making sure to reduce harm as much as possible. Because, okay, like I could take it, you know, I'm the one making these videos, but if you're coming at my commenters, if you're coming at my followers, if you're coming at my community that I found by creating the content I make, that's just unacceptable, completely unacceptable. Like, tell me what you want to say, but do not take this out on other people, especially little kids who are just discovering who they are. Absolutely not. That's some advice as well. I feel like fully embracing yourself, fully knowing yourself to the point where no one could tell you who you are is very important. I feel like that has helped me so much, just like solidifying your identity and your core values, your morals. All of these things I think are very, very important. Deconditioning the mind, doing your own research, not listening to everything on the internet. I think it's very important to integrate all the lessons, the challenges, the hardships. You know, it kind of did make you stronger. You know, like, it was very painful, it was very hard, but at the end of the day you come out stronger and more wise. You have to find your own chosen family and friends, you know, focus on hobbies, focus on what you can control, focus on what makes you happy, focus on, you know, people that make you happy, people that make you feel seen, people that make you feel like, wow, it's not a burden to exist today. Like, you made me feel like human today, you know, those types of people. You have to eventually find a community that you pour into, and just like find authentic love, and it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be platonic, you know. It's just like, I care for you, I love you. It's not necessarily like I want to be with you. It's more of like, I love you as a human being and I see you for who you are. It's very important to decondition beliefs. It's like one of the reasons that I got to this point in my life is because of this paper I wrote in college, and it'll be linked in the description below. It's also my WordPress and Substack about, you know, the history of queerness in my part of the world, in Mena, Swana, you know, however you want to call it. We have so many names nowadays. I feel like that paper helped me because I found so many articles, so many scholarly like pieces of evidence and works that just opened my eyes so much, and I think it was so affirming. And some of it obviously was sad, but there is a lot of research now, so head to the link below to read it. You're not less queer because you are religious or Muslim, also not less Muslim because you're gay, queer, lesbian, bisexual, trans. You are you, and you are perfect the way you are. Let me know if you have some questions. Yeah, see you.